As I said earlier, I'm a primary school teacher and I work for Promethean, and over the last 5 years I've worked very closely with colleagues on a piece of software called Active Primary, which is the software that we send out with our interactive whiteboards. And I'm not going to do a pitch for KIT, but I just want to say that I think it's important, and we've recognised that we try and start where teachers are. And for most teachers, the interactive whiteboard is a good technology space. Thank you. It's always good to have a technical person by. Thank you. So what I'd like to do is to share with you some of the ways in which I think we can embrace technology in the primary space and helping teachers to see how they can day-to-day manage that space, which I think is a real challenge given all of the other expectations on them. And so, as I say, we've got this piece of software, and I wanted to just start by using some pictures. Teaching is, after all, essentially about text and pictures, and these days, hopefully, with sound and multimedia included. And I think the challenge for teachers today is to think about how they can engage their students. How can they make them feel as though they want to learn and be part of a group where learning's fun and where they enjoy coming to school and where they enjoy the challenges that school brings. We need to enable children to communicate, and sometimes it might be like that and very private, but that's all right because actually it starts off being private and then it gets shared. How do we help them to be motivated and stimulated and want to continue and to be working in a way that sometimes they'll be a bit shy, and we need them to recognise that life's journey isn't always as you would like it to be, and things aren't always as you would expect them to be, but if you persevere, actually, it does come all right in the end. The lessons that you learn as young children are often the ones that pay dividends in the future. So we need to ensure that what we're offering in the classroom space is an opportunity for children to really gain in confidence, but also gain in the ability to communicate verbally. I think one of my biggest concerns about any technology is that children today are very focused on that technology, and their ability to communicate with their peers and with other human beings can easily be pushed to one side. So I see the board and this sort of scenario as a stimulus for talk and a way in which children can feel comfortable and able to. So when we've got teachers who are starting out on the profession and perhaps are more comfortable with the whole technology piece, we need to continue to remember that actually teachers do a very good job, and it may be without technology. And of course they need to embrace technology, but what we don't want is teachers feeling guilty about the fact that they're not using technology. We also don't want this scenario where we're actually putting teachers off. They're very special people. They actually have one of the most important jobs out there, possibly behind parenting. And we know that they do succeed in creating children who want to learn, who want to be together, who want to communicate, who want to do the next thing. They want to embrace whatever the teacher is offering them. So what I've got now are a few ways in which I've seen teachers using the technology, and I put that picture up because I think it could so easily be the child or the teacher actually. I was quite interested when I came here this morning and we were talking about how we were going to run this session and how keen everyone was to make sure everything was working and we all knew what we were doing. I'd like you to think about a teacher walking into a classroom at 8:30 in the morning with 30 children, different needs being required, someone crying, someone else not quite sure, but you're going to use technology and you're going to embrace it and you're going to do everything that everyone's expecting you to do, and you're not going to test anything first, it's all going to work. I think that's probably food for thought there. Anyway, let's move on to the next page, where we need to think about how the technology can help teachers to blend together the traditional with perhaps the more exciting technology world. And this is one of the ways I think is very important for teachers to use technology, is to let the children use it. And if teachers can be brave enough to allow that independent use, I think actually they're doing an awful lot more than they realise. Teachers can't have access to every single child all the time, and the child can't have access to the teacher all of the time. So ensuring that there is independent access to technology throughout the day is key. This little girl of 4 drew this bat, and together with her teacher, they wrote about it. She then used the sound recorder. We've tried to make the software as user-friendly as possible to enable the teacher to succeed in this space. So instead of having to attach a microphone and then save it somewhere in Bill Gates's dungeon, which you can never really find afterwards, what we've done is enable the teachers to very quickly be able to click on an icon. Everything I'm recording now, I'm saying now, is being recorded, and the icon actually drops down on the page. So on an icon, everything I'm recording now, I'm saying now, is to stop that. You can see how easy it is for a teacher to capture those special words. And if I was to click on here now, you'll hear how Grace is talking about her bat. It's not very loud. I've got a better example on the next page.
I haven't done my bat.
So I'm just going to show the next example, which is slightly better. And it also embraces the way in which the teacher has used a photograph. So it's a photograph of the garden. And the children were then allowed to draw their own creature. And then once they'd drawn their creature, using the sound recorder, as I've just shown you, they then spoke about their creature. Now, those 2 pinkish sort of lines would forevermore be 2 pinkish sort of lines on the picture had we not got this commentary.
That purple worm is going in the hole, and that one is going to see its friend.
So I could click on all of these, and if you'd like to see them later, you're very welcome. There's some lovely ones here. There's one down here where a little girl talks about frog spawn, and it becomes a frog once it stops being when it's finished being a tadpole. It's wonderful. Absolutely marvellous way of hearing the way children actually communicate the information they've learnt. And here the teacher has used the sound element in the software, and she's taken photographs of all of her children in the class, and the children were talking about settings, and they were talking about environments and how that affects the way you're feeling and the way in which you might write about it. So this little girl said,
I am scared because it's dark.
And then by using a second photograph, the teacher was able to take that child to a forest in a way that obviously would have been very difficult.
This is me in the forest.
Now, the mere fact that she's standing in that forest obviously makes it have much more value to the teacher, because she can start to explain to the child what it's like being in that forest. And here we're seeing technology really enhancing the teaching and learning experience of these children. Another idea, using a photograph, and I've deliberately used photographs because I think it's important to start from where people feel comfortable, and everybody today so far has talked about being able to take photographs. And we've got a photograph here, and we've got speech bubbles, and we've got ways in which we might get the children giving some examples or some ideas about what those different characters might be saying. But let's take that one step further. And if I was to ask you to pretend to be that little girl, and how would you feel on that fishing boat? Maybe I could do this to make it easier for you. So this is a picture of one of the children, and obviously it could be a picture of anybody. And what I'm going to do is to make that little girl standing in the fishing boat become this person. So I'm just going to get rid of my original here. Make that a little bit smaller. How much easier will it be for that child to try and appreciate what it was like on that fishing boat, pretending to be that person standing there? Very easy to do, and very obviously a way of engaging the children. You've got some devices on your table, and traditionally people tend to think of them as being Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or for summative assessment. And I just want to explore with you how they can be used much more creatively than that. We're going to be using the egg-type ones in the middle of the table to start with, the ActiveOats. So if you'd like to just grab one, You can't do anything until I say so. Now, there's probably some debate around that. Should you be able to do exactly what you want when you want, or should I have an element of control? Should I be able to take the pace of the lesson and actually help you to focus on what it is I want you to talk about? So let's think about the 3 pigs. And the question's very clear. Do you think that the 3 pigs should have just built one house between them, or do you think not? So if you'd like to vote A or B, and you'll see that the results are coming in there. We actually registered just under 400, so if you want to vote more than once, that's up to you. But you can see the votes are coming in there. We've got them displaying at the top. So there you all are, scattered along. I'm going to stop the vote now. And interesting to see that we've not quite got a 50-50 split at all. People feel that the answer is yes. I'll just share with you that I've used this question on a couple of occasions, but the most memorable one was with some 7-year-olds and mixed class of boys and girls. And I asked them that question. And then, because I can see who answered what, and there is no right or wrong answer, I actually identified somebody. You can see they're numbered. Obviously, they've been named in a classroom scenario. And I said to this little girl, do you think that, you've said yes, can you give me your reason why? And she said, well, it would be good for them all to live in one house and have to talk to each other, and we could have a house made out of all 3 different straw, sticks and bricks. Great answer. I asked a little boy who'd answered no, and he said, that would be really stupid. The story's called The 3 Little Pigs, and they've got 3 houses. Now, his point of view, but the point there is, everybody committed to an answer. Everybody had an opinion, and everybody was able to justify their answer if I wanted them to. I could pair people up now and get them to have a discussion about their 2 different answers, 2 different viewpoints. And then maybe we'd vote again and see who managed to change someone's mind. Obviously, in a scenario like this, there's a few too many people for us to start looking at the votes individually. But I hope you can see that it's much more than just getting the answer right or wrong. So again, just looking at using the votes again, this time, I'm going to move it on a little bit by saying this is the pig that built his house of straw. And I would suggest that probably he's a victim and probably quite weak. And the wolf, on the other hand, is a bit of a villain. I wouldn't suggest he's a hero, but probably quite strong. Okay, remember that. Let's just take these away. This time, I'm going to put the pig who built his house of bricks and suggest that actually he's quite a strong victim. And I'd like you to tell me where you think the wolf would now sit, given that he's engaging with the pig that built his house of bricks and not the pig that built his house of straw. Do you think he's an A, D, B, or E? Or you might think he's a C as well, but I'd just be interested to see your viewpoint. Again, I hope you can see the value of using the technology, not just to get a right or wrong answer, but to get people really thinking about and afterwards discussing their answers and maybe coming up with a different opinion after that discussion. So I'm going to stop the vote. Very varied. And if there was time, it would be lovely to hear some of the rationale behind your reasons. And we've got a whole range of people there. Thankfully, we haven't got anybody. That's nice that no one's put an F in there, because I'd be a bit worried if they thought he was the strong victim. But you can see there that's very nice to get everybody's feedback and see what the results are. So I think the other thing that's, and somebody said it earlier, is that if some of these technologies can't talk to each other, then we've got a problem. Because it's no good if Promethean think, right, well, we've got all the answers and we'll keep it all, thank you, very close to our chest. And if you don't buy in with us, then you actually can't succeed using the interactive whiteboard technology. So we've tried to do different things by allowing anyone to use the software, for example. But one of the things I thought I'd do, and I've somebody in the audience called Jane, I can't see her for a moment, so I'm panicking slightly. Is she gone? Was going to type up, is there an Alpha Smart on that table? There is, great. What I've asked her to do was to pretend that she was a 10-year-old student and using one of these, would you mind just bringing that up? Thank you. And it's not very sophisticated, but it actually works. I've seen it used in infant classrooms very successfully. You can take it anywhere. The most innovative use I saw of it once was 6 children in a circle, and they were writing a story, and they all typed a sentence each, and after they typed their first sentence, they moved it on. So you ended up with 6 sentences from 6 different children. So what I did with Jane, who's perhaps gone to get a coffee, sorry? Right. Was we looked at, very quickly, I asked her to pretend that maybe she was a 7 or 8-year-old and think about Halloween. And so we brought up some pictures and some witches and various things. And then she typed up, she didn't have to save it because it's all here, some sentences for me. And I'm just going to plug it into my laptop. If I can find the right cable, got so many. And I'm just going to reset that page and go into text mode. I didn't actually read to see what it was that she'd typed, so I hope she's, there we go. Fantastic. Now, thank you, Jane. That's okay, sorry. I didn't warn you when I was going to call you up. The point there is, I think that's mobile learning. I think that's handheld devices. It's a slightly basic format. It's not texting. It's not using Wi-Fi. It's still using cables. You can actually Bluetooth these if you wanted to. But that's, I think, a really sensible use in terms of children and teachers being able to cope in that environment. And I was surfing around the other evening in preparation for this, and I found that somebody had actually put up on the web a Halloween poem, which they'd done using the video recorder in Active Primary. And it's up on YouTube, actually. And so I just thought I'd finished with that. And it's a little girl who's known as A, because they decided they didn't want to give her full name, which is fair enough. Just wait for that to load. I've actually got it as a separate file if the internet lets me down. Not that I've been there before. Oh, there we go. Are we going to get there? This video is no longer available. Great. Well, I'll just get the one that's on my desktop. Not going to get me that way. Interesting, as I tested it about half an hour before this session, and it was available. So this was using Active Primary and the video recorder, and I think it's great.
My poem by A. Witches and magic, ghosts and ghouls, say it together, Halloween rules. Black cats and broomsticks, maggots and moons, curses and cauldrons, zombies from tombs. Bobbing for apples, sugar and sweets, costumes for parties and baskets of treats. Happy Halloween!
So I had hoped that we would be able to somehow have the active expressions working throughout the session, and that hasn't quite come to fruition. So I just want to finish with a very quick use of the expression devices, just because I think they take them into it takes the whole learner response into a slightly different mode. So what I would like you to do is to pick up an active expression, which is the sort of slightly flat version of the voting device. You'll need to power it up. There's a power button on the left-hand side of the screen at the bottom. And basically, these are slightly different, and if you would like a more in-depth look at them, then please come and talk to us. But I've got one question I'm going to ask using those devices, And basically, again, the screen changes according to the question that's being asked. So I've got a question here, which I thought I'd just be provocative, and you can answer however you would like to. I'm going to run the poll. Sorry, I need to actually tell it that I'm using a different hub. So bear with me while I just change my technology over here. I've got a notice here saying, remember to change hubs, and I ignored it. So let's just do that. Sorry about that. So basically, the devices are registered to 2 different hubs. So I've just, obviously not a normal classroom scenario, I'd hasten to add. That was probably asking a bit much. So let's just get that flip chart back up again. Okay, this time I'm going to ask it to give you a scale, and there'll be 5 choices there. So you should see your device change now, and I'd like you to vote as to whether or not you think that the technology in the classroom should be dictated by the teacher. And you should see that there's a scale come up, and you can use the arrow keys to go along, deciding where along the scale you agree. Are you getting that? Yes? And you just need to use your arrow key, and then press send to confirm your choice. Slightly nervous moment here because we tried this the other day, and for reasons that we won't go into, it all failed. It's a lovely moment when you're in front of a lot of people and they're all expecting the technology to work. Fantastic that we can get some results here. Is everybody happy? Okay, and I'm just going to stop the vote there. And mixed response there. And in true teacher style, I could just now say, I'm going to check and make sure that everybody is confident with their answer. So last time, are you confident with what you've just said, or less confident? And again, if you'd like to vote accordingly, and we can get another poll up. So obviously, if we were looking at some sort of assessment opportunity here, and we were asking people to give me an equation or something a little bit more intricate, and then once people see the answer, once the students see the answer, they actually would quite like to reconsider. It's quite nice that we can ask them about their confidence, their level of confidence on what they've responded. So slightly contrived use here, but just to give you a feel for what we can now be doing. So the views seem to be very similar to what we had before. I haven't got very much more to say, really, other than thank you for allowing me to share some of the teacher experiences with teaching young children using technology.